Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 25 of the Oblivion Oath. I'm your host and GM for this session, Jason Bulmahn. And before we get started here today, I just have one quick announcement. We just launched the Advanced Player's Guide playtest yesterday. On Paizo.com, you can go right now and download the document with 4 new classes. The Witch, the Oracle, the Swashbuckler, and the Investigator. Look at that, I even got all 4 of them right. You can download those right now and give them a spin. We would really love to hear your feedback, and tune in tomorrow for tomorrow's Paizo Friday, where the design team will be discussing these classes with all of you. So tune in. All right. Are we all ready to play?
Yay!
Yay! All right. Yes.
Yes.
Awesome. Yeah. No. All right. Great. So when we last left our intrepid band of adventurers, we were all in costume, and the 4 of them were trapped in a haunted dungeon. A dungeon that, as it turns out, was haunted by a vile and vicious redcap. When you first ventured into this ancient ruin, the ruin of Prince Karasoth's domain, you first thought, hey, this is just, a kind of an ancient ruin out here in the River Kingdoms. There's lots of these. There's plenty of kingdoms that have risen and fallen over the years throughout the River Kingdoms, and this is just one more of those. But it quickly became apparent that this place was far from abandoned. Strange noises, mysterious blackness, and the gate slamming shut, trapping you inside, all gave you a bit of a clue that something wasn't quite right. You explored the place, eventually finding the catacombs deep beneath the surface, and there, the key suddenly flared to life, raising all of the dead there. As opposed to your previous problems with it, where it just raised 1 or 2, now you had dozens of undead rising up and coming after you.
Do we know if the key is raising them, or if the key is going, hey, look out, there's undead?
I don't know, but in my notes I say, do not take key into crypts or catacombs.
Yeah, that was weird.
Good
All those...
Noted.
That's a handy note. To be honest, you're not 100% sure. It could just be growing cold whenever undead are near. That is a possibility.
Correlation, causation.
It's hard to say. It could be either one.
Okay.
To be honest, that's the big problem with the key in and of itself. You really don't know what it is or what it does. You're just stuck with it, and that's kind of where you're at right now, trying to hook up with the retreating forces, the last forces of Last Wall. That is your entire goal right now, is to attempt to meet up with them to try and get some answers about this mysterious knight and his creepy key. However, that doesn't change the fact that you were locked in a dungeon and desperately trying to escape while being hunted by a murderous redcap. Eventually, you found your way out of the place by traveling through dark and twisted tunnels. There, you faced off against the redcap with his rather vicious, horrible scythe, desperate to drip his woolen cap in your blood. But through your valor, through your bravery, you managed to defeat him. However, when he was finally destroyed and the darkness that he was spawning all around him finally lifted, you unfortunately saw the 4 severed heads of the other Last Wall soldiers that had been traveling with you. Apparently, this redcap had been off doing rather grim work.
It's okay.
No, it's not. It's not okay.
Welcome to the group, Eric.
Yeah.
Death and despair.
Oh, it's okay. It's further with Pharasma now. Hopefully, they might have turned into undead.
Who could know right now? But you did manage to finally escape this place, fleeing with a small amount of treasure. Well, no small amount of treasure, actually. An awful lot of very old coins, a set, a pen set with inks, and a silver crown with an emerald gemstone. You made your way back to the camp, only to find the place in disarray. The 4 guards, the 4 Last Wall soldiers, were dead. Their bodies were here. Unfortunately, so was the body of all 3 of the horses, including the precious horse Nicodemus, whose name was
Rosemary.
Rosemary, that's right. I was about to say Buttercup, but that's not it.
Right.
It's a different plant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She was a good horse.
And emerging out of the gloom, you saw Severina walking out, her weapon drawn, calling out, "Who goes there?" in a frightened tone, guarding the Hastings family, Uldru, Yara, and Erdrin. And I believe that's where we kind of left off.
Yeah.
Was that moment staring at this grim, gruesome scene, the Redcap's handiwork arrayed before you.
I wisely asked if they were okay.
Oh yeah.
That was a pretty.
Yeah. So we'll pick up right there. Severina is very shaken. She's her rapier is out, but you can see it's kind of quivering and shaking as she looks out into the. It's like mid-afternoon actually, but it's very gloomy out. The sky above is kind of gray and overcast. Now, I realized we didn't actually cover a little something last week, and that's what happened to the owlbear cub.
Oh yeah.
Oh no.
Now, you actually left it on the surface when you first went down to explore, assuming that
We'd be right back.
you'd be right back. As you are standing there, you hear kind of this sploosh, sploosh, splash, splash, and kind of chip, 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 as it comes bounding up out of the swamp, totally like soaked head to toe in mud, just like all of it's like all matted down. You know how like when you take a big fluffy cat and get it wet and all of a sudden it's really skinny and tiny? Owlbears are kind of the same way. Like it comes up out of it and it's got this big beak and giant eyes, but its fur is just matted down to it. Its feathers are all matted down and it's like chip, chip, chip.
That is so pathetically cute that it actually makes me feel a little bit better now. Yeah.
Thank you for clarifying. It's mud after the red cap.
No, it's mud. Yeah, no, it's clearly mud.
It
Yeah,
rhymes
no.
with blood.
Yeah, no, it's mud. Yeah. But yeah, no, it's just soaked, and it's like,
Oh, I'm gonna like crouch down and be like, come on.
and it kind of comes waddling because it waddles, waddles up to you and just like tackles you because it's about half your size at this point. It's not small.
So it tackles you. I'm just gonna kind of put my hand on my blade, just like, all right, this is fine.
It's fine.
Okay.
A piece of good news, at least.
Yeah.
Severina, thank goodness you're alive in the Hastings. We believe we have taken care of the foul creature that did this, but we must be on our guard just in case there were. Gods forbid there is another one.
It came at us in the fog. The guards told us to run. I took the family and fled, but all I could hear was their screams.
Yeah, that was probably a good idea.
Yes. It was did you see it? A little grizzled fellow with a big scythe and big metal boots.
I only heard splashing and the sound of blades striking and screams, the horrible screams.
Probably better they got out of sight.
Yeah.
The Hastings family looks like they have borne witness to some stuff that they're gonna need,
Family just
they're gonna need some
family therapy.
yeah.
need some therapy.
They have been through some stuff.
Those kids are very wide eyed. Yeah, no, they've been from tragedy to tragedy to tragedy. And they look they're just kind of hollow-eyed.
Oh,
They
no.
look like they're building a tragic backstory
Yeah.
for some
They
later
will
adventure.
they will eventually become adventurers with a tragic backstory.
Yeah.
There
That's
we go.
literally what's going to happen. The only thing that's missing, is their father's death. But you all prevented that, so it's fine. So it's
We've
fine.
got plenty of
No,
time.
we haven't prevented it. We've just stalled it.
Well,
Sure.
the good news is that we don't have to wait for the guards to come back. The bad news is that we don't have to wait for the guards to come back.
I'll just mutter and walk over to the wagons and start inspecting the damage.
So here's the lay of the land. In the tunnel, there were just the heads.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh.
just the heads. Okay.
Where was all that blood coming from then? That's a lot of blood for just
was.
heads.
You're not sure.
I assumed it was kind of like magical river of blood.
I thought it was just, hey, there's a bunch of bodies. dripping
I
over
should
there.
I should note there were other dead animals and stuff. It looked like the Red Cap had been collecting like animal heads for quite some time and just added these to the collection.
A nice grim menagerie. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's more of an Art Deco kind of piece. Yeah, it's
What a lovely room of death.
I don't know much about art, but I know what I hate. And it's severed heads.
it's just a piles
of severed heads.
It's an acquired taste. It turns out.
It was more of an installation, not to everyone's taste, but you know.
Performance art.
So are there bodies here?
So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
On that note, the bodies are here. The horses were not decapitated. I suppose is the
That's a
actual word
word.
for that.
We make words for a living. It's fine.
Beheaded. But the guards' bodies are here. The wagons don't look like they took too much damage. It looks like they took some hits, like in the middle of a fight, like your blade misses and slams into the wagon or something. So there's some nicks and cuts, but
There's no
the side-
horses, so I don't know that it matters.
the side of your wagon is just splashed with blood, like right up the side of it. Like a guard was fighting in front of it and just took one to the neck and just like horror movie style right up the side.
Blood splatter analysts.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Yikes.
You don't really need, CSI Absalom.
I think
for this.
someone
That's
was
it.
murdered.
Yeah. You kind of know what happened.
Don't need the new investigator class.
Is this strawberry?
Oh yeah, no. Quinn is on the case. Yeah, no, not so much.
Wah, wah.
Well, I can help if you want some help to lay the bodies to rest.
The ground is soft here. I don't know if that makes me feel any better, but yes.
At
Before
the
they.
very least, we can position them in a way that respects their lives.
Perhaps there are horses as well.
Yeah.
Just get them out of the
at the very least,
from-
Rosemary,
from the camp.
as horrible as this sounds, maybe I should stop there.
Oh boy.
Well, I'm just thinking like the owl bear is a growing, hungry creature, and we have some horse that maybe we should, I don't know, alchemist could figure out a way to.
To be clear, while you're talking, the owlbear has already wandered up to one of the dead horses. This is like,
Yeah.
Oh no.
I mean, I don't know how long it can live on ham and how much ham we have.
I will.
our ham rations are running very low.
I will.
The life of an adventurer.
I feel like out of respect for the professor and his beloved horse, I'll say probably not Rosemary.
Yeah, I
don't know
agree
if
with that.
you have any preference for
They were just work
your horses.
Yes.
Okay. I mean,
Well, on the upside, the owlbear is currently nibbling on one of the other horses. It just went and started having a snack.
I guess it doesn't really need to be cooked.
The other day, you caught it with on your way here, you caught it with like a bird that it had gotten and was like, and there's feathers coming out of its beak. And
Crunch, crunch,
Is that
crunch.
like cannibal? Never mind.
Oh, okay. So
Great.
That said,
Yeah.
bury some dead, or at least take
Yep.
care of them.
I was gonna say, Lieutenant Carina, I know you took some hits with that in that fight.
Yeah.
Are you in good enough shape to perform these burial duties at the moment?
I mean,
Yeah,
should we
I mean, I
bandage
could
you up first?
I could use some healing, but actually, I could use a lot. I forgot I was counting down hit points after.
Yeah, after I
I've
put
only
you a little
taken
bit.
4.
Wait.
Yeah, so I have like 11 hit points left.
Yeah.
You don't need more than that. It's fine.
I mean, I'm fairly injured, but most of the blood from me is actually just from crawling through my, subordinates.
A mixture of blood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could use some healing.
Well, I'll do some medicine checks then,
All right.
all around
Go right
before
ahead.
we start any burial duties.
I'm assuming, are you just going with the 15 check, or are you trying for the 20?
Let's see. I could.
Well, you can only try for the 20 if you're an expert in medicine.
Yeah. Okay, then I can only do the 15,
All right.
even though I have that chirurgeon crafting.
Yeah.
But I'm not an expert in crafting yet either. So let's just do the 15. That is a 17.
That's great. So that's
we'll put it
what
on
is it?
Karina.
How many hit points is that then?
2d8.
Do I roll that or do you?
If you feel like it, go for it. I'll see here.
Okay.
Lieutenant Swift Thistle. A 28.
Whoa.
So that's a critical success, I believe.
That is,
That's
so
48
it's-
for you.
Oh, great. I rolled a 1.
Oh no.
So did I.
I got 4 hit points back.
Oh boy.
Well, I'm looking pretty good now. Whatever you did, it worked real well, so.
given time, I can also heal myself. It just takes a while and some dedicated prayer. Does like giving his the bodies of his the poor headless bodies of his
putting them to rest
people?
does count as refocusing
Okay, so if I'm
for you in particular.
if I'm praying and doing all that, okay.
So you can go ahead and use lay on hands at least 3 times during that.
Okay. Cool.
Because it's going to take at least 30 minutes. The upside is the ground here is very soft because it's kind of swampy. So digging at least a shallow grave is actually relatively simple.
Okay. Cool.
But it still takes, considering there's 4 of them that you need, and I don't know that you're actually going to try and bury the horses, or you're
just get them away from the camp at the moment.
Yeah.
And then and do a little bit of butchering away from the camp, maybe.
Probably a little
Away
bit
from
deeper
those children.
than shallow too.
What?
Said probably a little bit deeper than shallow too, considering the current state of the world. If they wake back up, I don't want them crawling back out. So
That's fair.
They don't have heads though, so.
Well, yeah, that's
Does
true.
that matter? Do we know that?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Do I know that? How would I know that? Would that be like a
That'd be a religion
thing?
check.
Ooh, I have
Can
that.
headless undead come back to life?
Oh, I'm sure they come back as a very special kind of undead.
That's going to be
Super
16.
Any dead body can come back to life. Like you know that like you don't have to be complete to come back.
Okay.
In fact, you have yourself seen undead that are like missing arms. And stuff, so.
Well, I guess
But
the
this
headless.
is
The
just
prince's
a
skeleton,
head.
the prince's skeleton attacked the
That's
headland.
true. Yeah. And he was like crawling up the gate and stuff.
Yes.
So
You
okay.
didn't bring his head back with you, did you? No. Because it was still like chomping and
No,
biting.
we didn't we? Because it was like stuck to the crown.
No, we took the crown off.
You
At
took
one
the
point,
crown
I had the skull and it was chitter
Yeah,
chatter.
it was chittering in.
Yeah.
And then I
Oh, you threw it back in at the skeletons that were trying to crawl out and get us.
yeah.
But
Yeah, I'll mumble something about Doolahans as we're just like digging these graves. Just
Yeah, no, you don't want to. Yeah, you can certainly have undead that are only bits and pieces.
also thank you for helping.
What was Erdrin's profession? It's the father, right? Erdrin?
Oldru.
Oldru, the father.
If I recall correctly, he's I want to say he's a cobbler.
Okay.
Cool.
Just guessing to see if he was happened to be a butcher, he could help us.
Shoes, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Not pies. No.
Dang it!
Oh, son of a
Horse pie.
No one wants a horse pie. Ew. All right.
Is that like a cow pie?
That's what they leave behind on the road. Now, all right. So moving on. All right. So you're able to bury the horses, bury the soldiers and drag the horses off so that nature can take its course. The things in the swamp got to eat too. And
growing owlbears.
You butcher some meat for the owlbear from the horses. The whole process takes like a grand total of like about an hour and a half by the time you're done. It's now like mid-afternoon. You still have several hours before nightfall, you think. It's kind of hard to tell. That gray mist from this morning, that just kind of the entire kind of moor that you are in is just kind of obscured by this kind of heavy gray fog.
Well, while the burying's happening, I'd like to take some rags and cloths from my wagon, a little bit of acid, and just wash the blood off.
And I was gonna say too, I can use prestidigitation for if
clean
people
us up.
want to get all the blood off of them, and like
Good
I'll
idea.
clean off little owlbear, and
Gore just explodes off the side of it. Clean.
it's like The Shining. It opens.
So,
up.
what are we gonna do about the wagons? Because we don't have any horses to pull them.
So you have 2. One wagon is obviously Nicodemus' wagon. The other wagon is the wagon filled with last wall like supplies and stuff. Basically, you packed when you left Timon. You packed up the recruiting station, and you didn't bring things like furniture. Like you didn't bring chairs.
What?
But you did bring all of the records of like all of the gladiators that you ever sent. You brought all of the like communications, all of the like letters of marque and things and letters of reputation and things like that you were required to keep as a station.
Yeah.
So like you've got like 3 or 4 full-sized wooden chests filled with documents and maps and like and I mean admittedly also like all of your personal effects are in there. Now, I mean all of the rest of yours personal effects fit in your backpack because you long ago had to trim down to next to nothing. But you've never done that. So, like, you know, all of your stuff isn't.
I've wandered before. It's dropping all of my material possessions probably isn't the hardest thing for me to do. But, you know, one thing I shouldn't be leaving is excellent forgery material for all of the insane amounts of bandits wandering around the general area here. So I will actually, once we're done with that, kind of walk over and kind of start eyeing up your wagon, since it's the smaller of the two, and just, you know, it looks like I'm trying to plan out how to fit things into yours.
Yes, my wagon is my livelihood, but I don't know if that matters much anymore in these particular times. I think we can make some room. I can get rid of some of my bulkier equipment, and we can attempt. We might have to take turns pulling it for a bit until we can find a place to buy another horse.
Yeah, what kind of strength do you need to pull a wagon?
So, quite a bit. I would say that, generally speaking, so in terms of fitting stuff into the wagon, there's always been extra space in the wagon because you sleep in there, and you know, so there's extra space in the wagon for like a pile of chests and a couple odds and ends, without having to get rid of any of the things that you have in there, because you have like most of an alchemical lab back there. As far as pulling the wagon, well, the wagon's always been pulled by just, you know, the one horse, but it was never also like a let's go on a race with this wagon. It was always, you know, Rosemary was a draft horse, you know, so a very strong beast of burden. Could the group of you pull the wagon? Yes.
Push it?
You're gonna want to pull it. If you push it, you're in this muddy terrain. Pulling is your only option. You can't really push it here. You'll just push it into the mud. But you do have the harnesses from both wagons, and if you hook them up, as long as you had like a combined strength bonus of like 6 or 7.
What's your strength?
I've had a desk job for the past 10 years. While I look like I probably was a fierce warrior sometime, I've let myself go, so it's not very high.
How high is it?
12.
So that's a bonus of 1.
Yeah.
I've got 4.
That's 5.
Oh,
What's
no.
Sabrina's strength?
I have a 1.
Oh yes, you're stronger than me.
Oh, really?
Yes.
What's the cobbler's strength score?
Oh yeah.
He has a +1.
Okay.
We saved you. Now get in front of this cart.
So the three of you, the
You
cobbler
only have 3
and you
harnesses, right? So you've got the 1 from this wagon and the 2 from the other wagon.
two. Do you have any spells or any potions that would make me stronger? Just a little bit.
I could eventually.
We've talked
learn
about
those sorts of
juicing
things.
before. It's not a good idea.
Have you talked to your adventurers about juicing?
More of a medicinal properties
Yeah. Okay.
kind of.
Well,
You're not a mutagenist.
Not quite. I did take 1, but that was silver tongue.
If only I had the opposite of Ray of Enfeeblement. would be
so
great.
I think our options then are to toss enough stuff that we could pull it, or leave it.
Have we seen a
So with with 3 of you pulling, you do have enough strength to pull it. You will not be making good time.
Yeah.
But you can make it move. It will be going at like half speed.
Okay.
And the 3 of you will be exhausted
Yep.
every day.
Let's toss as much as we can, and then see if we can pick up another horse.
Yeah,
That way
as
we
possible,
don't.
yeah.
Yeah.
right. I have no idea how close we are to any
Yeah.
places that would have horses, but I mean, just
We'll keep our eye
staying
out.
here is not really
The
going to help us
last
either.
community you went through was very small, and you didn't see any horses, so you'd have to go back even further than that. And
Well,
that
we can
was over a
keep
day
going
ago.
forward. So.
Yeah.
Have we seen a single other traveler in this time that we've been doing all
You
this?
have. There have been other travelers on the road, but the problem there is that, right, they're not exactly going to have horses to spare.
Oh, I want to find out how far the nearest town is.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have no idea.
Oh.
Yeah, you're not sure right now. The next time you see one, maybe you can ask.
Yeah,
but-
yeah,
We
exactly.
don't know how far we are from Kainen either, right?
Well, you know you're still in the River Kingdoms. You're following the trail that you are on. Kind of follows the West Selen south, before joining the main branch of the Selen and then diving south to head towards Absalom through Andoran, kind of on the border.
Yeah.
But you're not there yet. So that said, Kynan is across the river.
Oh, that's also going to be.
you would have to, you'd have to find a bridge.
Yeah.
And you're not sure where there even are any bridges across the West Selen. There are undoubtedly some, but odds are there's probably more like a ferry. The West Selen's kind of a big river. Yeah. You actually cross the West Selen to get out of Razmoran into Timon.
Oh.
Might as well get started.
Yep. Yeah, we'll go ahead and just start pushing the wagon.
Pulling.
Thank you.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is not where we thought we would be, but here we are.
Okay. So, grabbing the harnesses and getting them rigged up takes about another hour or so, and you're able to make a bit of progress that first day. Just to get a sense of what the cadence and rhythm is going to be, you're able to pull for an hour to two before it starts to get dark. And by the end of 2 hours, the group of you are really tired. That was a lot of work. And you've probably made
500 feet.
No, it's like oh, we started over there. The other wagon's still right there.
Wah, wah.
No, it's not that bad. But it is very slow going. You're probably going at like 2 miles an hour or something. So like you made maybe 4 miles. And that required you to stop numerous times to kind of get the wagon out of the mud and kind of yank it free.
I'm just glad to be farther away from the
corpses
that we buried.
Yeah.
And the massacre site.
Yeah.
Well, I think you two should keep going through your stuff and figuring out what we can get rid of.
Yep.
And then the rest of us should make a camp and get ready to spend the night here.
Yeah.
So you make a camp off to the side of the road. You find a spot where it's relatively dry. It's on a little bit of a rise, so you're not down in the swamp. And you find a place that will serve perfectly fine. You make a small fire and break out food, which has the upside of lightening that wagon just a hair. Those of you who helped pull it can't help but think, well, it'll be like a pound lighter tomorrow. But with the fire, you kind of, as it gets dark in this swamp, that kind of gray mist just hung the entire day. It didn't really fade. It didn't really go away. And as night falls, you find that it's almost as if you're kind of all alone up on this hill. The mist kind of hangs low to the ground, and eventually as it gets colder, it starts to drop away a bit, and you can see the stars sparkling overhead. The campfire attracts quite a few very large moths that start flittering around the camp, and this at least provides endless entertainment for the owlbear and the children. The children, because they're clapping it on as the owlbear hops around trying to catch these moths and kind of just doing the
it's like a laser pointer.
Yeah, kind of, right? The moths are flopping around the fire, and the owlbear is leaping after them.
Aww.
But your evening is at least quiet and peaceful.
So of all this massive paperwork I'm carrying around, how much of it would be forgivable if it just disappeared?
You
firewood?
could sort through it, but you didn't. I mean, basically, when you packed up to leave, you just took all the logbooks and put them in chests, kind of doing I'll sort this on the other end kind of thing. So, I mean, you could spend some time sorting through some of the books and stuff just to get rid of the kind of pointless stuff. Oh, here's all of our receipts from Timon. I don't know why
extra
anyone
warmth
will care
from the
about
fire.
this.
Yeah,
sure. So you can spend some time digging through those notes and records. And as you do so, you flick the extra pages into the flames, and their dying embers kind of soar up into the sky, and the moths are dancing around them. As you're doing this, and it's quiet and peaceful, and Oleg is telling stories to his kids and trying to keep them entertained and trying to wipe away the nightmares of the past few days. And as you're doing this, you come upon like the intake papers for like some of the guards that recently passed. I'm assuming you just file those away.
Yeah, I am also going to, upon seeing those, kind of remember my duty and just start writing letters. My favorite thing.
Yeah, the best part of being the lieutenant at a watch station.
Yeah. Also looking through the lists, I can't help but imagine that all the people I sent to Last Wall are probably dead now, so I'll be pretty pensive.
Yeah.
That's how you get forlorn.
Yeah.
Way to bring the party down.
Anyway, that owlbear's cute, right?
Oh, yeah. Hey.
All right, so
I'm tipping back some of my minor elixirs of life for my wounds.
it might
that
as
what we're
well.
calling them?
Yeah, I got
at this
18
point,
more to go.
between the lay on hands and between elixirs, I'm assuming
Okay,
everyone's back. to
sweet.
full.
That's good.
So when you're going through the wagon, just whatever doesn't bring you joy.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's the bottom line.
Yeah,
It's like, well, I don't
which,
think that...
as it turns out, is a lot of this.
Yeah. Womp womp.
So the next morning, you're able to break camp. Your night goes uneventful, other than the moths, which eventually kind of give up, especially after the owlbear is like covered in pollen from eating a bunch of them.
Oh, goodness.
Oh my gosh. Cute. What a little scamp.
Yeah, oh, isn't it adorable? Look at all those bugs he ate.
It's cute while it's small.
Yeah, no, it's fine. It'll be less cute when he's doing that to gnomes. All right, so
That's you.
I'm your mother. Not really.
So the next day, you're able to pack up your small camp and continue your journey. You are pulling the wagon for the better part of the day, and you're not making good pace at all. But you are moving, right? The wagon is still trundling along under PC power.
How much are your valuables worth in this wagon?
There are some discussions about whether or not this is sustainable over lunch, I would assume, because you do take a small break now and again, mostly just to get everyone water and to rest up a bit. At one point in time, you actually ended up having to stop just because there was a rather nasty, horrible swarm of midges that were biting and stinging everyone, and you had to kind of brush them away and chase them off with some smoke from a torch before you could continue, because they were just making the going impassable.
Awesome. This gets worse and worse.
I can make some batches of things that'll make you feel better. It won't cure your exhaustion for sure. So it's like real fake coffee.
This is just
Is this
liquor.
coffee? You just described coffee.
A little
Go
bit,
on.
but yeah.
Yeah.
It's Kahlua.
So you continue making your way, and in the, I would say, early afternoon, so this is like an hour after, you're coming upon an area, and it looks like the past mile or so has been pretty tough going, because it seems to be slightly upslope. And you've kind of left some of the swampiness behind. It's still not great. There are still pools of water here and there. But the ground itself is getting a little bit more dry and a little bit more solid, which going uphill is terrible, but at least the ground is not mush anymore. And up ahead, you see nailed into the ground is a post. There's a wooden post, and it has that look of relatively brand new lumber, right? You know, instead of being kind of old or gray, it's kind of got that bright yellow look, like they just peeled all the bark off and made a post. And there, next to the side of the road, is a sign attached to this post, and it's made up of a number of just plain boards nailed together, and it's painted rather garishly, and it reads in common: "Welcome to the kingdom of Bright Crown, carved from these lawless lands in 4718 by the hand of the brilliant, the courageous, our true lord, King Gildebrand Bright Crown. You enter these lands by his leave. No magic without the king's permission." And then written below, kind of like, that looks like it was carefully like laid out and done, below it in kind of more hasty script, it says, "The king can see all."
Man.
Okay.
Sure, a lot of omnipotent people around here recently.
Yeah.
Well, we can possibly leave the wagon aside and stride forth to get some horses, maybe if they have them, and bring them back. Or we can just roll on up, pulling our wagon with us and hope for the best.
So there's a branch in the road?
No.
This is just where it's the border. The border.
Yeah.
Okay.
This looks like the path is now leading into a kingdom.
Sure. Okay.
Yes.
So either way, we're going through it.
Yeah. Does it have any mileage markers on it?
No.
Oh, if only.
Mileage markers. How organized do you think the River Kingdoms
What is
are?
this, Andoran?
Yeah,
I wish.
They haven't got that in Andoran. No, they're just like, how far is it? I don't know. It's that way.
Keep going.
Yeah. But yeah, no, you don't see anything like that. You have no idea how big or small this kingdom is.
Well,
for your part, by the way, none of you have ever heard of the kingdom of Bright Crown.
we did, but it's not on here.
Did we what?
Map.
Oh.
Oh yeah, sure.
No,
you could check the map.
Yeah. All right.
What does the map say?
This is just kind of listed in, like, it's one of those parts of the map where it just says the Wilderlands, and that's it.
The Death Swamps.
There's nothing described here.
We should draw in
FYI.
Bright Crown border.
Just like added ourselves like Death Swamps, which I'm like, this is a terrible place for a kingdom. What are you doing?
And did we mark on the map where that tragedy happened?
Probably. I would
we want
assume
to?
so.
Yeah.
Well, so if we come across somebody in Bright Crown, say the king of Bright Crown or someone else, do we tell them hey, there's a bunch of undead that should probably be dealt with? Or do we go assume we're gonna get back to that later?
I feel like it depends on how we feel about this king of Bright Crown.
I just want to make sure we're all on the same page before we go into this. Maybe it's not a good idea to tell him about the hoard of ancient elven gold.
You've got most of that, yeah.
Yeah.
That's true.
It's like half of my exhaustion is just from carrying all the money.
Man, I am tired carrying all this money.
Oh, and my diamond shoes are too tight.
Oh, it's terrible. The worst.
So, you're standing here at this border, and just looking at it, by the way, just so that everyone understands, 4718 was last year.
Yeah.
This sign looks very new.
This is what the River Kingdoms is all about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Forging your own path, creating your own kingdom.
Sure.
I don't know if I appreciate this gentleman having eyes upon everyone.
Yeah.
But maybe
Also-
he's not so bad. Let's not judge him before we meet him.
No magic.
No,
And we have
yeah,
to go
it is
through
tough.
anyway. So.
Yeah,
Yes, exactly.
we might as well just keep going.
Okay, we will
Yeah.
continue to pull the wagon.
You continue to pull the wagon.
I will start brushing off my coat a bit and getting my hat ready for
Yeah.
anybody we see that we can make a good impression.
Absolutely. So you continue to pull the wagon, and you go about another mile or so, and through this you're kind of making your way through some gnarled looking old orchard of some sort. But remember, it's late fall right now, and there are no apples to be seen, but scattered around the ground you can see all their kind of rotten cores. Looks like a lot of them, you don't see that many, right? So you're just looking at it, it's clear that someone harvested this, but they didn't get everything. And you're making your way through that, and the trees kind of thin out, and as they do so, you are looking out at kind of a big field, and I would say it's probably a few miles across, and it looks like it's farmland. So you're looking out at kind of fields all around, and in the center is a bit of a hill, and atop it it's a keep. I hesitate because it doesn't look like any keep you've really ever seen before. It looks more like a ruin that is half kind of rebuilt. So the wall on the outside, it has a wall and a barbican, but the wall is half crumbled in one spot, and you can see just like a hastily put up wooden palisade in the gap. Behind it, you can see this kind of towering ruin, but the center of it looks like it's got like a wooden house built on top of it. Like it looks like if you took a stone ruin and it just collapsed in on itself, and then you rebuilt the missing bits with timber. That's kind of what you're looking at here. And even from here, you can see kind of waving in the breeze these two giant poles in front that have this banner that has this symbol on it. And you saw this at the sign, which is this tall golden crown symbol just covered in gems. Obviously the symbol of the bright crown.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm not going to judge. Beggars can't be choosers. I think we should go check it out and see if they have a horse that we can buy
Indeed.
Yes.
Yeah. Let's go.
or rent.
So,
Pat my back. Bye.
are you continuing to pull the wagon? You're going to pull it right up?
No, I think we should tuck the wagon off the trail a little bit and leave a note that says we'll be back for this. Please don't take it.
We went this way.
We could possibly leave the Hastings and Sabrina here to watch over the wagon. Like,
Do they want to be left alone?
I don't know. If
They look around and they're like, what seems like civilized land? It seems safe enough.
Okay.
In fact, you can see out in the fields there are some farmers, some workers.
Sweet.
Okay.
It's late season.
Yeah.
And most of the crops are dead and harvested and whatnot. But there are some kind of late season crops that they're picking. You see, in fact, one of them has a wagon off to the side of the road that's loaded up with pumpkins.
And it has horses?
No, wagon is
Like
too
a wheelbarrow?
grandiose a term.
Burrow,
It's
yeah,
more
yeah.
like a cart.
Okay.
hand
Okay.
cart. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's go see if we can get a horse.
can they see us?
Yeah. As a matter of fact, the ones nearest by, and they by nearby, I mean they're like 200 feet away.
Yeah.
And they're in the middle of their field. They have their hand cart and they're loading it up with pumpkins. And they stand up, and they're human. Looks like maybe a husband and a wife. They look like they're in their maybe 50s. They're wearing really rough spun clothing, browns and tans and stuff. And they have hoods to keep out the chill. And they're one of them is leaning up to this kind of scarecrow, and the other one is got like a pair of shears to kind of cut the vine to get the pumpkins, and they're just kind of staring at you. Especially when you came pulling a wagon into the clearing.
Yeah, we deserve
that's
that.
quite a sight.
I'm wondering if you just let them know that this is ours and maybe pay them a little to watch it for a minute.
Yeah.
while
Buy
we
some
go get it.
pumpkins.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
I'm gonna stride into their field
So
and waving my hat and sort of as bowing and making.
Question: Are these the big like carving pumpkins or like the little sweet pie pumpkins?
they look like more like small eating.
Okay.
They're eating pumpkins. That's an eaten pumpkin. As you make your way into the field, the wife, mother, you're not sure, she whistles. She puts her fingers in her mouth and whistles back at a farmhouse that's not too far off. This open kind of field is dotted with a handful of kind of pretty ramshackle looking farmhouses. And out of it comes a young boy, dressed similarly to the parents. Comes bolting out the front door, and the mother whistles, and the boy kind of stops, looks, sees all of you, and goes tearing off for the keep.
Oh.
Fair enough.
Rolling out the red carpet for us, I'm sure.
Yeah, we're new people, strangers. Eventually, I'll if I can get closer a bit and sort of make my introductions.
All right, you come up and he's standing there with the shears and he's got his pack of pumpkins and his husband and wife are kind of standing next to each other and they kind of look at you and go,
Stuff my hat.
well, one of them elbows the other one and the wife goes, she's like, hail and well met, ye travelers. welcome to the kingdom of Bright Crown. You are here by the leave of our magnificent lord, and she turns and kind of waves to the nearby keep. King Gildebrand Bright Crown the First, long may he reign. May his empire grow to cover the sky from and he's like the earth from dawn until dusk. Along with the brightness of his crown, and she just
there's a whole spiel.
Yeah, it goes on for like a whole minute.
I have to look away to not be like laughing. So I'm just gonna.
My good folk. As you can see, my friends and I were passing through the River Kingdoms here. We had an unfortunate accident and we lost our horse. So we've been struggling to make it through here, pulling ourselves away. By the way, my name is Professor Nicodemus Thorn, purveyor of potions and alchemist's delights. But I would like to let you know that we are weary. We are going to visit your fair keep up there, but we would like to leave our wagon where it is at the moment. And perhaps, with... No, is that not fine?
You just kind of, they look at each other and they're like, oh, the husband says, the Name's Temblo. He like takes off his hood.
Yeah.
He pulls off his hood and he's kind of holding it worryingly in his hands, and he's like, well, the Lord will have to be informed. It's his land.
Yes. We are on our way there. We were hoping we could purchase a horse, perhaps, within the keep.
A horse. Ooh. Wealthy folk, then.
We get by. As a matter of fact, though, I've seen you as a sort of a compensation for interrupting you in your work. If a pumpkin or two to take with us, they look quite delicious.
She looks at her.
He's all for the Lord.
And the wife kind of looks at him, and she kind of nods, and he's like, he's like, well, we oughtn't. These aren't ours by leave. We are.
Okay.
These are the Lord's Gourds.
The Lord's Gourds.
Gourds. And
That's a really good.
That's the name of the episode.
Lord's Gourds.
Of course.
We understand. Don't worry about
she
it.
elbows him, and she's like, well, maybe just.
We would compensate you, of course, and you could tithe unto your lord as you see fit.
Business for our Lord, and she's like, business for the Lord, and he's like, yes. Then perhaps we could part with one of the Lord's gourds.
Yes. I'm going to. I don't know if I should go crazy with this, but. I'll pull a silver piece out.
No. Do coppers so that they can split it.
Yeah.
Oh yes. No, that was sleight of hand check. It was copper all along.
How many copper are you?
I will pull out 4 copper.
4 copper.
Yes.
And they're like, and she kind of nods, and she's like, yeah. And they gladly sell you a pumpkin for 4.
Yes, indeed.
One of the big ones too.
One of the big ones.
Yeah.
You
can bring that to Sabrina, and she can,
play the flute at it.
Well, that little crowd of folks at the wagon can
can
cook it and eat it and not feel left out, that they don't get to go to the keep.
I will head up to these folks as well, because they do seem like they're just trying to get by. I will actually let them know that we do have a broken down wagon about a day and a half that way. That's pretty much open grabs on anything in the wagon. There was no way we could bring it all, but it had a lot of clothes and various other effects. So.
Well, we will have to tell the Lord about it. I mean, such might be, and all of a sudden it turns into all that the Lord and his subjects might see could be of the Lord, and it is through his benevolence that we receive his gifts. And they're just like,
yes. Of course, we have a terrific story to tell your Lord once we head up to the keep of our travels and our troubles.
So as this has gone on, you notice that the boy has made it up to the keep, because it's not incredibly far, right? Yeah. I mean, like I said, this whole area is perhaps 1.5 miles, 2 miles across, and you're already halfway there. And so the boy has run up and kind of waving his arms, and you see riding out from the keep is 4 riders mounted on horseback.
Oh,
Sweet.
And the 2 in the front have streaming banners that are like, trailing this white, kind of off-white banner with this crown painted on it. And between them is a rider who's kind of just high in the saddle, and behind them is one more kind of soldier-looking type, but doesn't have a banner or anything. Has a bow. The rest don't have bows.
Sure.
probably keep the owlbear on.
Yeah, real quick, Karina's gonna take out like 2 more copper and just say, quick, before they get here, is there anything we need to know to steer clear of? Subject-wise.
They kind of look at each other. Can you give me a diplomacy check?
That's a good answer.
I can do that untrained, right?
Sure.
Oh no!
8. They're like, no. They kind of eye each other, and they're like, no. The Lord is very benevolent, and he's very. He loves guests. The Lord Brightcrown is a friendly Lord, and he is the most giving to those who and they
That's fine. It's fine. Let us go speak with this good king.
I want to know how he sees everything, but I have a feeling they might not be able to answer that.
So the 2 farmers, when the riders come up, you notice wherever those coins went, magically disappeared, and they go back to picking their pumpkins. They're head down and picking their pumpkins, and the riders come up, and as they get close, you get a better look at them, and they're human. Although one of them looks like he might be half orc, and maybe one step further removed, maybe like quarter. But they look kind of like rough customers, stubble. They're not clean shaven. One of them has a really nasty scar going down one side of his face. A couple of them have kind of wry looking grins on them, and you can see kind of yellowed teeth. I mean, to be honest, that's not that unusual. The farmers you're just talking to don't look like the most hygienic of sorts, but the thing that makes it jarring with these folks is that you can see, hand patched leather armor with scraps of other cloth woven into them and stuff, but over that is this off-white tabard with this giant yellow crown in the middle of. I mean, it's huge. It's like the whole thing. And so they're all wearing that, but that's over like their kind of like rough spun, ill-maintained leather armor, and they all have like mismatched weapons. This clearly isn't like, you arrived at the keep where all of the soldiers have the exact same gear and equipment. No, like one of these guys has an axe, one has a sword, the guy in the back has a bow, and between them is the only one who's not wearing armor. This is the one in the middle. So you got the 2 with the banners. You got the one in the back with bow who has it out and just sitting on his lap as he kind of rides forward. And in the middle is what looks to be like an older human man who looks just as road kind of worn as the others, but isn't wearing armor. He looks like he's wearing kind of threadbare noble's clothing underneath the tabard. They're all wearing the tabard. And he is like, "Hail, travelers! Welcome to the kingdom of our Lord King Gildebrand Brightcrown. You are here by his leave. What brings you to the border of our noble lord?"
Yeah, well, I am Professor Nicodemus Thorn, traveling apothecary, and we were passing through the River Kingdoms. I was plying my wares with my good friends here.
Merchant!
Yes!
And he kind of looks at the others, and they're like...
Terrific. And we fell upon some hard times on our way through the River Kingdoms, and unfortunately we lost our horse. So we've been pulling the wagon a bit, a few miles now, a few days, and we were just luckily enough to come upon your fair kingdom here, and was in the marketplace for purchasing maybe a mule or an old nag that your good lord could spare for us, so that we may not exhaust ourselves to death pulling the wagon further on.
Ah, well. He kind of, he steeples his fingers and is like, merchants are always welcome in the Lord's noble lands. It is by your commerce that we shall all thrive.
Yeah.
The king will be delighted to meet you, and surely your problems can be one that the king may be able to solve. Would you care to accompany us?
Of course, if you don't mind, we're going to leave the wagon here, so we don't have to pull it any further. We've had a rough day as it is.
He looks to the other soldiers and he says, but of course we shall send a rider back with a horse and have it brought to the keep.
Oh, that's most gracious of you. Thank you so much.
If you'll come right this way.
Yeah.
You know, if you could excuse our not misgivings, if you could excuse our hesitancy here, we have had some pretty negative experiences in the past. I think we'd prefer just to leave the wagon as where it is.
He looks at you and says, but surely you are safe now. You have landed in the lands of our Lord Brightcrown. Please, come with me. Come with me. All will be well. The Lord will be happy to receive you.
Like, oh, can I do a little perception check on whether or not this?
Well,
we'll go
I'll
fetch
tell
a
you.
horse and
I'll
come
tell you
back.
what I can do is roll a perception check for you.
There you go.
So what's your perception?
+7.
I mean, he seems like he's being honest enough.
Mm-hmm.
You're not really. I mean, obviously, there's something. You know, just the this place is obviously very new, and the guards here and whatnot don't look like professionally trained soldiers. The farmers look like they have seen better days, but also. This is the River Kingdoms, and this is how this happens. Like, what starts out as this 50 years from now ends up being a giant kingdom. You never know, and that happens all the time in the River Kingdoms. So, are they full of it? Maybe. But are all of the River Kingdoms full of it?
Am I full of it?
I just don't want to end up having to leave in the dead of night through a sewer again.
That's fair.
That's fair.
When has that ever happened?
I was gonna say, please
To be
look
fair,
forward
it
to
looks like the keep up on the hill isn't big enough to even have a sewer. So, I mean, there's that.
So we'll be trapped in there. It's great.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they escort you. They the group of you are escorted up to the keep. You leave the wagon behind. It's unclear whether or not they're actually going to come and fetch it or not. They seem to kind of just dodge that. They just kind of went, yes, but you are safe here in the beneficence of King Brightcrown, first of his name, Lord of these River Kingdoms. And they bring you up to the keep, and as you get close, it becomes very clear that this keep is literally just a heap. It's a ruin that has been rebuilt or is in the process of being rebuilt. As you make your way up, you can see a few laborers out at the wall where there is palisade, and the palisade is on the inside of the wall, and they're standing on the outside, and it's a bit of a hill, and they're sitting there with like mortar, and they're putting stones in place trying to rebuild the wall. That's what you do. And you're brought in through the main gates, and it takes a bit, right? I mean, you have to walk up there, and so you're taken between these two giant banners, and they're like 50 foot tall, but as you get close, you realize they're just kind of this rough spun, like bleached burlap that just has the crown painted on it. And you're brought up to it, and from there the guards dismount, and you realize that all of the people here are, and there are various ancestries and whatnot. I mean, there's humans, there's half orcs, there's you see a couple goblins moving about, and you realize that all of them kind of have the same kind of bearing and countenance to them. They're all wearing mismatched armor and have mismatched weapons and stuff, but they all have the tabard, so at least they got that. And you are the guard who is escorting you, whose name you haven't gotten yet, says, "Right this way. I shall bring you to our liege at once. He'll be delighted to learn that a merchant has arrived in his lands." What did you say that you dealt in again? What was your
alchemy?
Alchemy.
Potions and tinctures.
Wondrous.
And balms.
Well, I'm sure that the Lord Gildebrand will be thrilled to learn that you have arrived and will be most interested in your commerce. Right this way. And you are led into the keep. And by keep, I mean you're literally led through the ruins of a front door, through an area where most of the stones and whatnot have collapsed, but they brush it all off to one side to kind of make a walkway. It looks like, they've been trying to do some work here, but the entire front house of this keep kind of collapsed in on itself. But eventually you get to a point where there is a wooden wall set inside of some of the ruins and a door, grand kind of wooden double doors. It all looks, kind of hastily put together, and but it's solid.
They're trying.
They've only been building it for a year after all, so
it's a lot to rebuild.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you make he makes his way up to there, and there's two door guards there, and he kind of goes up to there and knocks on the door, and the door opens a crack, and there's some inner door guard who's like, "What's the password?" And he kind of leans forward, and you hear, "Good." And the door opens, and as the doors swing open, you are looking into a great hall. And by great hall, I mean it's just a building with one room. So it's one
hall.
It's the only hall, and it's this giant long hall with the original stone floor there that looks like it's been cleaned off and polished, even though it looks ancient and kind of ruined and cracked in places. It still looks kind of nice. And on the far end, in this giant wooden throne that is like 15 feet tall, carved from wood to look like the giant crown shape, and painted or perhaps even laminated with like gold leaf, is this giant gold throne, and sitting on it, screaming, "Well, who is it?" is a goblin wearing a crown almost as tall as he is. And that is where we are ending today's game. I want to thank you all for watching this episode of Oblivion Oath and encourage you to tune in next week for more of our exciting adventures. We will see you all next time. Bye-bye.
bye.
Bye.
Bye.